guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am Max. So I started a new thing. It's a new series I'm bringing to the channel. It's not going to be all the time, but it's just going to be a little series I'm doing. It's where I interview people, either in the music industry, the movie industry, and the motorcycle industry. So if you know anything about me, if you've been a fan of my channel for a long time, I'm talking way back, a lot of those videos started out with me riding my Honda Navi to a lot of old movie sites, Home Alone, Risky Business, things like that, seeing what they look like today. I'm a big fan of 80s movies. I like pop culture. I like true crime, all that. So this is a new series I'm starting where I'm going to sit down one-on-one, interview the people. And today on the channel, we're going to interview the eyes and ears of the institution, the janitor, Carl Reed, that was his name in the movie, from, yes, The Breakfast Club, one of my all-time favorite movies, John Kapelos. Watch this amazing interview. John's got some pretty cool things to talk about. I even asked him about motorcycles. Has he ever rode one? Does he ride? Find out.
Brian, how you doing? Your dad work here? Carl?
What?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How does one become a janitor?
You want to be a janitor?
No, I just want to know how one becomes a janitor, because Andrew here is very interested in pursuing a career in the custodial arts.
Oh, really? I listen to your conversations. You don't know that, but I do. I am the eyes and ears of this institution, my friends. By the way, that clock's 20 minutes fast.
Okay, cool. So, guys, today on the channel, I'm interviewing an amazing actor and musician, born in Canada. He's a Second City alumni here in Chicago, and you've seen him in some TV shows such as Umbrella Academy, Big Sky, Forever Night, and some movies that I'm a big fan of, a lot of them being, 16 Candles, Weird Science, Shape of Water, Roxanne, and my personal favorite of all time, probably my favorite movie of all time, as you probably know what I'm going to say, John, The Breakfast Club, where he played Carl Reed, the janitor, the eyes and ears of the institution, Mr. John Kapelos. John, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Let me start out, because I don't think a lot of people know, like, you are a musician.
Yeah, I mean, I am. I have been.
Yeah.
I have been about the same time. I mean, I took about 8 years of piano when I was a kid, and I played a lot of music when I was at Second City and did a lot of stuff. And I just wanted to reseed that cloud, so to speak. And
right. Right.
So I play. I'm working on another album, and that's. But I'm an actor / musician / writer / wrists.
Right. Have you ever wrote like any music for like a TV show or in the movie industry or anything like that?
I've scored a few little movies, and I've done a bit of scoring in that regard, but I haven't really done anything major. And no, the answer would be no.
Okay. So John, how did you get into acting?
Basically, it's a little cliched, but I did a high school play, and I really, really, really liked it. It was Guys and Dolls. I got out of class. I got to meet girls. Well, I got to hang out with the drama club. Although a lot of guys were not into meeting girls. I don't know.
Right.
Not in my high school, but I understood that theater was more than just that. But seriously, I did a play, and I really felt like I had an aptitude for it, like I could do it,
Okay.
And it's like when somebody plays baseball or does something, when they're young and go, frig frag, man, I could do that,
Right.
I could really do that. And I really, I think that, I'm the youngest of my family, and being the youngest, I sort of had the attention getting gene, and needed to sort of get in people's faces. And my brother and sister were like a couple years very close, and I'm several years behind them. So,
Okay.
you know, and also I really, I mean, I love the movies and I loved all that stuff. You know, there's a whole generation of people like probably your age and younger that, you know, have like been a bit more bold about wanting to get into the films and
Right.
TV stuff. But, you know, it was kind of unheard of where, you know,
Okay.
like when
Yeah.
I told my family and friends, I remember telling my friends when I was about 15 or 16, I think I may want to become an actor. And they all just fell on the, remember we were playing baseball or something, they just fell on the ground and laughed.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You know,
yeah.
like, you know, but like anybody, you know, when you're 15 or 16, a friend of mine said, I want to be a, you know, I want to be a ball player. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be, you know, nuclear physicist.
Right.
People laugh, but that doesn't necessarily, they were laughing at my dream as much as they were just laughing at my earnestness, probably.
Right. So what would you say, like, what movie early on did you like realize like, oh, okay, I'm an actor. I'm doing this. Like, was there ever that thought like,
The movie that I was in,
yeah, like maybe the first role you got where you're like, okay, I'm an actor. This is it. This is what I'm doing. Like, do you ever have that thought? Like,
well, you know, I did a lot of student films when I was in college, and the first film I ever did, I don't like to mention this. I haven't mentioned it too much, but I remember it, and I sort of forgotten about it. But when I was about 15 or something, I did an anti-VD movie where I had to make out with a girl. Now, VD, right? This is like
okay,
way everything else, all the other
yeah,
horrible stuff that's come along. And I remember I had to make out with a girl, and I
uh-huh.
remember thinking, "Wow, if this is what the movies are about, then I'm in." But but um, but seriously, you know, I remember I did a couple student films that were humiliating.
Yeah,
You know, the director wanted me to react and be shocked, and I
okay,
didn't react and be shocked in the way they wanted me to. So on the third or fourth take, they threw scalding water on me,
oh
and
wow,
I was react and shocked, and I was also,
yeah,
you know, third degree burns and really angry.
oh my god,
It's like
I could,
you have these early experiences that you don't even want to think about, let alone talk about.
right, right,
But you know, like by the time I got into the movies,
yeah,
like when I got Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, which, you know, I can talk about. I did Tootsie and I was in the movie Thief,
oh yeah. There's so many you've been in,
but they were kind of not really fun and flattering experiences. Uh,
right,
and they were kind of negative in certain ways. I mean, they were kind of trial by fire. But but when I got into the movies like 16 Candles and Breakfast Club, by that point, and I had also done a film before that called The Naked Face with Roger Moore. Um, by that point, I was like, "Fucking a, I deserve this," and you
yeah,
know, so it wasn't
yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm in the movies. I'm in the movies." No, it's like,
right.
"Oh, I'm in the movies." God
You
damn
always
it!
had that confidence, yeah,
And like at that moment in time, you know, there are enough people that want to tell you in whatever business you are. I mean, I don't know you or your life, but I'm sure that when you said I wanted to do blah blah, people said, "No, you're not. You're not gonna do that."
oh right, yeah, exactly,
It's
no,
like, you
yeah,
know, people that said, "No, no." It's like, well, yeah, I'm doing it.
uh-huh.
You know,
And you did it,
and I'll never forget, honestly, when The Breakfast Club came out, I said they can't take that away from me.
yeah,
I just remember saying to myself, they cannot take that away from me because there's always this and you know, people don't talk about it that much. I don't think I even really mentioned many podcasts, and I don't mean to be negative about it, but there are always people that are, you know, really want to diminish what your accomplishments are, or
right,
want to say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," or you know, even the people that you compete with, or people that are in your field, they don't want you to, you know, feel your oats too much. And indeed, there
yeah,
are people that like to put you in your place.
oh yeah,
But when you have an accomplishment, you know, it's worthy of at least acknowledging it. You know, you don't have to go over the top. There's this very famous Rudyard Kipling quote: "If you can meet triumph and disaster if you can meet triumph and disaster and treat both imposters the same." In other words,
right,
when something bad happens, you don't get too low. When something good happens, you don't get too high.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and anyway, you know, it's I always wanted to be in the movies, and I'm in them.
That's awesome. So I mean, since we're speaking of Breakfast Club, so like, did you audition for it, or how did you meet John Hughes? Like, how did that all?
I auditioned for 16 Candles.
16
And,
Candles, okay.
the wonderful casting director, Jackie Birch, put me up for 16 Candles. And John was really cool in that he wanted to cast a lot of the stuff in Chicago. Like,
Right.
they brought in people, ringers, whatever, people from LA.
Mhm.
They had obviously their cast, and a lot of the major cast was cast in LA, maybe New York too. But
Yeah.
into Chicago, he wanted to populate the film with as many local actors and performers as possible, which was to his credit. And again,
Mhm.
if you think about the time period, we're in the early 80s. Not too many films were being made in Chicago then. Chicago wasn't the hotbed of film production that, I mean, I don't know where it focuses in and out. Right now, I think it's doing well with,
Yeah.
but like in the early 80s, you got to think back, and in the late 70s, there were movies like Hunter,
Mhm.
Steve McQueen movie, I think it was, and several films, but not really a lot of films being made. And John sort of brought that resurgence back.
Yeah, he sure did.
So I auditioned for 16 Candles. We really, really got along. I played
Yeah.
I played the part of Rudy Rizchek in that. It kind of altered the role a little bit. I think they were going to
Right.
make us a little bit. They made us a bit more ethnic, um, as opposed to low rent version of Molly's Family.
Yeah.
Um, and then after 16 Candles, when we were doing 16 Candles, John said to me, "I'm doing this movie next called The Breakfast Club, and you're going to be in it." I was like, "Really?"
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So flash ahead, I'm in New York, working at the Village Gate off Broadway with Second City. We're doing a show there. It's 1985-ish
Yeah.
or whatever, 6-ish in there. And they're shooting The Breakfast Club. And I open up in those days, my young boy, they used to have trade papers, the Hollywood.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
reading the New York version of the Variety, it was. And I see Breakfast Club lensing in Chicago. They're sort of cutesy
Yeah.
way, showbizy way of saying stuff. And I immediately close the magazine and go, and it was like, they've been shooting it. They've been working it for about 5 weeks or something. They've been, it's like
Right.
literally like 45 minutes later, an hour later, I get a call from my agent in Chicago, wonderful
Okay.
Reese Davidson, who's still a good Facebook friend, retired now, but wonderful. Anyway,
Mhm.
give credit where credit's due. And she said, "Listen, they want you in Chicago to do The Breakfast Club like tomorrow. Can you be here?"
Wow.
What? And they said, "Yeah, Rick Moranis had the part, and he and John Hughes had a difference of opinion on the way the part should be played, and they want you to come in and replace him."
I heard that. I heard. Not to cut you off. I heard that Rick wanted to play it as like a Russian immigrant.
Yeah, Russian kind of janitor,
Okay.
a mouthful of gold teeth and a wad of keys that he plays with provocatively between his legs.
Okay.
And, I mean, it could have been very funny and probably
Yeah.
was. But I mean, John, from what I understand, said, "Well, listen, did you read the script? I mean, the guy went to this high school,
Yeah.
and like that's not the way I see the guy." And
Right.
like Rick had a bit of say in the matter, and said, "Well, I'd like to try him like this, I suppose." I mean, I know
Right.
very little about it, aside from that it happened.
Yeah.
And they were kind of circumspect, quiet about mentioning anything about it. Rick's a really, I think, wonderful performer. He's retired, I think.
Yeah.
But I never met him. I mean, he's a Second City television guy. He's wonderful.
Right. So you get the call then to go to be there the next day to
Next day thereabouts, and I'm doing a show at the Village Gate with my Second City company and my colleagues.
yeah.
And we always had the way of, like, if there are 7 people and need 16, we can always shrink the
Yeah.
show. People will do different parts. So all my friends were like, my colleagues were like, "Yeah." The producers went, "Yeah." And ironically, I still had my apartment in Chicago, so I just flew back to Chicago
Uh-huh.
and started work the next day, or whatever it was, the day after on the Breakfast Club,
Wow.
early in the morning, coming in. And I remember doing my first shot was like, you guys think I'm sort of, some untouchable peasant peon,
Yeah, yeah,
I read your notes, I go through your lockers, all that sort of stuff.
yeah. And wasn't that original that was supposed to be a lot longer, like you had a big it was more lines than just what was said, wasn't there? A
Well,
lot
I don't
cut
know
out.
how you do your podcast, but if you have I think you can find it maybe on YouTube, but they released a Breakfast Club a DVD several years ago, which I think the cover of it was a box set where the cover of
Okay.
the locker. It was a locker, I think, in sort of a
Oh,
metal.
yes, yes, right.
And in that box set, there are all these DVD extras. And yeah, the thing is that we shot a lot of stuff. John had what they call a high shooting ratio. And
Right.
in the days when we shot film, or when they shot film, um, when I was involved when they were shooting film, um, shooting ratios meant something. Now, in the digital age, it's a bit different because, you can shoot longer takes and you're not
Right.
dependent on the film in the mag and the camera.
Yeah.
Whereas film being what it is, expensive, etc. So John would shoot like, have a high shooting ratio, which would mean for every shot used, he might have 10, 15, 8 to 10, 15 takes, which is high.
Okay. Yeah.
Usually it's 3 to 5, 6 maybe. But John also had a habit of using the shooting process as an improvisational process. So
Okay.
in my situation, we do 3, 4, 5 takes maybe of the way it was written, and then he'd say, "Okay, let's try some things differently." Right?
Okay.
So we shot this whole sequence where I come out and I basically tell them, everyone, Molly and Judd and Brian, Anthony Michael Hall, et cetera,
Yeah.
and Ellie, where they're all going to be like today, like 30, 35, 40 years in the future.
Okay.
Basically said to Molly, you think you're a big queen now, or you're going to be a big girl because you're going to have 4 big kids and you're going to be in your big Suburban. You're going to be able to roll out with your big stomach and
Yeah.
your big problems and your big ex-husband who's having,
Right.
and we improvised all this stuff. And then Judd Nelson, like, you're going to be, 5 years in Chino or whatever, 8 years in Leavenworth, drugs.
Right.
I'm
You were predicting their future.
but it was basically, I went around the horn and said where they're all going to be today,
Right.
basic, but several things happened. It was funny. It was improvised well. It was long. It was
Yeah.
exciting for me because shoot, I got to say all this extra stuff.
Yeah, you did.
But as the story goes, the way I found out that it wasn't going to be in the movie, all that stuff, was I showed up at the Universal Studios here in Los Angeles at the Alfred Hitchcock soundstage, where they do ADR, which is replacing dialogue, and where you go in and
Yeah.
you fix lines here and there. If the word is bumbled, they may want to change it or whatever. And
Okay.
the editor of the movie, a woman named Dee Dee Allen, who was kind of sort of masculine type of woman, very sort of business-like. She
Yeah.
put her arm on me and said, and uncharacteristically said, tapped my shoulder and said, all that stuff you shot where they're going to be 30, 35 years on. And then she went like this with her fingers. Out, clip, clipped out, and
Yeah.
sort of went through all this stuff that I shot. I shot a bunch of other stuff that was not in the movie.
Right.
So,
Did you take offense to that, the way she said it, or like is that just the business?
No. First of all, I would never take that's not my posture.
Right.
What the fuck? You do that?
Yeah, yeah.
You're not in that position. And certainly I was, even if I was, in an authority position, I would never have reacted that way because these are artistic decisions that the director, the editor
Right.
make, and it's their decision, not mine.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
went, okay, brokenheartedly, okay. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Well, whether I agree or disagree, which was immaterial, and because I had no idea what sort of movie they're making, right?
True, right.
You just come in and you do your thing, and but I
Yeah,
had, Simple Minds, or using the David Bowie thing. I mean, yeah, there were things in the script, but you don't know what a movie's going to be like, and you have to respect. And so,
right,
so I went
right.
in, did my stuff that day, and replaced my dialogue, and but it was memorable.
I bet. I
to,
bet. Were
to
there
be,
were there
to be,
I heard there was like, so Judd said there was four drafts of the movie where everyone else disagreed, especially Molly Ringwald. She said no, there were a ton of drafts for the movie that John Hughes wrote. Do you remember, or?
no, I don't, and I wasn't involved in the process before that. But
Okay.
as a person that's recorded a lot,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Beatles guy. And, oh, they got like an outtake of this and this and that. And as a kid, or when you're younger, and you look at this stuff. But when you start creating stuff,
Right.
like I've written songs, and like all of a sudden I realize I've got 5 demos of it and 4 outtakes and this and that. You don't, the stuff as you're making it proliferates. In other words,
Yeah.
I'm sure that John wrote, knowing John, he probably wrote, no, I can't say this, but I'm sure he wrote more than 4 drafts. I'm sure he wrote
Okay.
20 drafts.
Yeah.
John was just crazy creative. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even go into that. I would imagine that between the two of them, he might have finished 4 official drafts of different types of movies.
Okay.
But before that, how do you cut it down? He might have had 10 drafts. I can't speak to that. All I do know is that I have a draft of the script of my own,
Okay.
which I have a PDF of, which is like it's radically different.
Oh wow.
There's a whole bunch of ladies, sort of matronly middle-aged ladies, who are
Uh-huh.
doing uh, a Pilates yoga class or something
Okay.
that they go and spy on.
Right,
And
right.
there's a little bit more pot use, I think, in parts of it, and
Yeah.
just a lot of stuff that's happens in around the school. Like the school, John used it more as schools, high schools on a Saturday sometimes can be used by the community. So there are a lot more activities around the
Right.
school. Whereas the movie, as we've come to know it, the school is rather empty,
Okay.
and it's just them. But um, as you come to realize, and as it became the movie that it became because um, you know
Yeah.
when you go outside that room, outside of them, the movie, you're counting the minutes.
Yeah. Right.
Even in the basement with me, or in the basement with Paul and myself, I find him going through the files, or when we're talking, those are
Yeah.
those are good cutaway things. But I think the movie would have been diminished a lot more had there been a lot of other BS going on.
Right. Right. No, I think the way the way it was it's amazing. That's why it's a cult classic today. You know.
Well, why do you think it's a cult classic?
I remember my cousin showing me this movie. I was probably 12 years old. I never heard of it, and he was older than me. He was babysitting me and my brothers, and me and my brothers never seen it either. And I really wasn't interested at all. He's like, no, it's The Breakfast Club. I'm like, how does this? You know what I mean? And I don't know what it was, but I instantly, like, just, I don't know if I could relate, like, because each character was so different. So maybe you could pick a little part out of each character or something like that. But I don't know what it is that made me love it so much. I guess just because every character was so different, you were just interested what each character had to say. And then what's funny about it too is it pretty much just takes place. It's got one setting pretty much, just in that library. So it's not like it was like an action movie, where as a kid, especially kids today, they got to be engaged into like these action movies and all that. It was just this simple movie, but it was so brilliantly, I think, the way it was wrote was just brilliant. And and I didn't even know who John Hughes was at the time. I was so young. And then to come to find out that I loved the movie so much. And then as I grew older, I found out all these other John Hughes movies that I fell in love with. And I started reading up about John Hughes himself. And I just loved everything. Then I found out he's from where I live. You know what I mean? From Chicago. And I just started doing a lot of the going, visiting all the old movie locations. I just loved everything about him. And I just loved how I don't know. I heard he was like a real genuine guy. Like he was
So what
different
year
than
were you born?
1978.
Oh, so you're okay. That's the year I started acting professionally
Mm-hmm.
at Second City in Chicago. So I think that maybe just for you to understand a little bit is like I grew up in the 60s, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I was born in 56, and so by the time I sort of my eyes started opening up, I would like when John Kennedy was assassinated, and like I'm 5 or 6 or whatever, 7 years old then. But
Right.
and then the 60s just blew out of the water. After that, they became a different time, and then of course, the Beatles and rock and roll and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff was just phenomenal to live through. And then there were the assassinations of Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
and you can hear the siren outside,
Yeah.
almost like my own side.
That's all right. I got lawnmowers outside my door.
But in the 60s, when they were trying to figure out, the adults were trying to figure out how to make movies. Like movies are changing.
Yeah.
They made these really crummy movies for kids for the most part. There was this one movie called Wild in the Streets. I remember. It was
Uh-huh.
like hippies and this and that. But
Right.
they were basically written by these older guys or people that were not part of the generation that
Yeah.
were trying to write about something that they didn't understand. And for the most part, they were writing down to their audience. In other words, they weren't really speaking to their audience in a way like, the films were not cool.
Right.
They weren't relevant. And the thing that pops with John Hughes is like, okay, you're 12 years old, your older siblings, and put you in front of a TV. You got to watch this. Now, in a way, you're programmed because everything's for adults. And all of a sudden, you're looking at it. And what you snap onto as that kid is, first of all, the language is different.
Yeah.
And second of all, they don't give a shit whether they're talking to your parents. They're talking to you. Oh, wait a minute. They're talking to me here.
Yeah.
And, Dweeb Zeeby or whatever the language that John used, or that, it's like, and I say this often in interviews, and it's kind of a silly dated reference, but John Hughes adults were kind of like the adults in the Peanuts cartoon or
Uh-huh.
Peanuts. Wah, 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 wah.
Right.
They were kind of these silly, almost cartoon-like characters, and they are. And sometimes it's to his detriment, but that doesn't matter because the movies shine anyway. Um, Paul Gleason as the teacher, two, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. But he's still real. And so there's the language thing, and like all of a sudden you're a 12, 13-year-old kid going, wait a minute. Uh-huh. And the other thing that he did, like, okay, yeah, it's in the same room, whatever, it's not an action thing, fine.
Right.
But everybody's got a story, and you want to
Yeah.
find out about them.
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
and the thing about really good movies, whether they're whatever they are, it's all about story. And if you engage somebody, from the moment they're dropped off, you want to know, well, who the fuck is this guy?
Right.
And so what good movies do and what good art does is it sets you up as an audience member to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they there?
Right.
What did they do?
Yeah.
Who are their parents?
Right.
And who, most importantly, are they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I mean, I know I'm sort of giving a lecture here about this, but the fact of the matter is, when movies engage you like that, it's like getting your tie, or I mean, people don't wear ties anymore, but it's like getting a piece of material caught on a conveyor belt. You just sort of you're literally
Yeah.
caught on it. And there's no way you can get out of it because you're emotionally hooked, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And, I think that John had a real gift that way. And I also believe that, he was lucky because he surrounded himself and with people that allowed him to do what he needed to do.
Right.
So,
Yeah, he's definitely a good storyteller, that's for sure.
man, I talk too much.
No, you don't. No, that's what I want. This interview is about you and definitely not about me. But no, I agree. I think he's a great storyteller, and I was always engaged in every film he ever did.
And the
And
other thing is that, the reason why they took all my stuff out, like where I told them where they're going to be today,
right.
and I have to say it was the right decision, despite the fact
Mhm.
that I liked it and my career probably would have benefited from more stuff. But that aside, the basic message of the Breakfast Club is what? I mean, there are several messages, but one of them that I take from it is that we all become our parents.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like, at the end of the day, we all like, it's like the tide is taking us out to sea and we all become our parents.
Right.
And like I was saying to them is like, basically I was saying that. So it was too much on the subtext of the movie.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Am I going to become like them? Am I going to, what are we
Yeah.
going to be like when we leave here? What's going to happen when we grow up? Oh my God.
Right,
And
right.
there's a dread of leaving the safety of that library and that
Hmm.
time period. And the thing that I think is precious about the movie, is that what they realize, as opposed to having to be there at the end, they sort of needed and wanted to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, I mean, I haven't done a deep dive analysis on the movie in terms of writing an academic thesis on it, but I think that there are a lot of things interesting about the film. Because at the end, I mean, it's always a film about identity. Films are always
Right.
about identity. Who am I? Who are you? What are we? Where are
Yeah.
we? And where are we going? Right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, and you tell me what teenager today, and I know several that are struggling in my family and world that, are just struggling with their identities.
Oh yeah, big time.
Who the fuck am I? And why do I need to care about you? And I don't want to be like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
No,
all
you're right. And I think
push
that's
pull
why
stuff.
that's why I think I grew like I was so attached to the Breakfast Club because like I said, I was like 12. I was this skateboarder kid, but my parents were making me play sports and I didn't think I was really good at that. And that's kind of like a group thing where skateboarding you can kind of go do by yourself or with friends. But I didn't know who I was, and then I liked rock music, but I liked rap music. And back then, really, in the 80s when rap was coming, like it wasn't cool to be this kid like me from the suburbs that like rap music. Like these kids
No.
like rock music and Motley Crue and Gun. Like you like rap music, so like I would
A
lie. I'd be
really
like,
interesting article in the New York Times last week about how, music is really segregated in this country. Like people in the Midwest listen to classic rock. People in
mm-hmm.
the not just necessarily black and white, but sort of how it is
Oh
socioeconomically.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and then just like I think that's why I grew on. Like watching a movie, I'm like, okay, what is Judd Nelson? He's tall. He's. I'm like, oh, he's kind of he's the punk. I'm like, well, I'm kind of that guy. But then
No,
you got.
fun fact: Judd is about 4 years, 5 years younger than me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I was losing my hair when I was 27 when I did the Breakfast Club, real
Oh
young.
wow, I was gonna ask you too how old you were when you did that. Were you
Yeah,
really?
Judd
Wow.
was like 23 or 4, I think. I mean, maybe I think, but anyway,
Yeah.
he played the teen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, you could have fooled me because I didn't even look at it like that watching the movie.
Yeah,
I
but
was just so.
that's also casting and it's also good writing, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, it is definitely. So well,
sorry
we
for
talked
the
about that.
ambulances back here.
Yeah. um. So John, are you working on anything currently? Like right now, like you got any upcoming projects or anything? Or
I did a season last year on Days of Our Lives, a soap opera.
okay,
And that's been out, and that's currently running for the year. I'm did an episode of The Lincoln Lawyer. Was
okay,
a very little touch and go part. And right now I'm developing a show and a film, and I'm a show called The Mayor of Koreatown, which is a detective show,
oh wow,
and trying to get it to a streamer. Sort of, it's a long form thing.
yeah,
And then I'm lined up to do a film, I think, in late July, a horror,
Okay.
and then something else perhaps in August, September.
Awesome.
We're, I mean, in the papers today, yesterday, it's, post strike here in Los Angeles, the business has not really come back that strongly. So people are really worried, and
Yeah.
I'm among them. But it's the show business since I started, since the day you were born, has always been a changing landscape, right?
I bet. Right.
So with Netflix and the different modes of production, they're shooting stuff like Atlanta and everywhere around the world. Netflix is,
Yeah.
and a lot of production has gone away. So a lot of people in California and Hollywood are worried that it may not come back.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's a bit of an anxiety thing. But,
Yeah. I see that.
and I have no interest in stopping anytime in the near future. I mean, I have friends that are retiring, or
Yeah.
they just not doing anything because they decided, well, I'm going to be really, really picky, and I'm not there yet. I still really want to work,
You still enjoy it.
yeah, to greater or lesser degrees. I mean, uh, I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'll be blunt. Show business is not enjoyable all the time, and
Okay.
that sometimes the situations and people and things you have to do or deal with are not that enjoyable. So,
I,
but like most things in life, you have to sort of make it work for you. And
right.
I'm not a complainer, and there are lots of. There's an expression: "How do you get an actor to complain? Give him a job." But
Yeah.
uh, you probably don't. They're always price busting, but everybody's price busting. They want you to do more for less every year, everywhere.
Yeah. I hear you.
You go out to the store and you buy a meal and it's like $40 for two burgers.
I
Really?
know.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's in,
so and I go to the store and blink at a loaf of bread, and it's so we're all in the same world, swimming in the same pond. And
hmm
the thing that I sort of find funny is that everybody thinks actors are millionaires, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And I wish we were, but um, oh, I make a bad joke here, but so some of the actors that are millionaires end up face down with ketamine in their system in their pools. But so
Yeah.
I'd rather be alive and struggling than
I hear you. I hear you.
dead and addicted or something. But
Yeah. That's true.
that's
Very
not
true.
the choice. But Hollywood is a weird place, and you know, people have high expectations. They come here, they really want to make a big living, and they
Yeah.
think they make a lot of big money. I
It's
don't know. I
not,
mean, I'm
not
wandering,
always the case.
I'm wandering around here, but it
No.
to me, I think that sometimes people have their heads on wrong about, if you really want to make a lot of money, I don't think you should become an actor.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. No. I agree with you on that.
I mean,
And
yeah, certain ones do, but I
right.
I do this because I love it, and I've been loving it for a long time. So yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part, I do it because I'm compelled to do it,
hmm
and but um, finding good parts is always a challenge, and being, have the ability to get good parts. I mean, like I did Jack Ruby a few years ago for the Umbrella Academy. That was fun, and
Yeah. I could see that. Finding the right part can be a challenge too.
yeah, and and things that try not to have done things you've done before, but it's difficult. It's difficult because so you always try to put a little new spin on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Okay. And John, I'm going to ask you a really random question. So, so basically on my channel, been going to a lot of, movie locations and, but I've been doing it this time on my motorcycle, which I fell in love with, and I've been nonstop riding it whenever it's nice out. Have you ever ridden a motorcycle? Have you ever had a part in a movie that they needed a motorcycle? Any motorcycle story, or just no motorcycle story at all?
No motorcycle story at all, except that when I was in high school, Gary Comfort, one of these guys I grew up with, had a motorbike, and I almost lost my life on the guy.
So not a good story.
So I have to say to you, I'm afraid of the things.
Yeah.
Now I want to get an electric bike, and I just read an article in the paper saying that New York City is going crazy with electric bikes, and there are all these electric bikes around here. But I have to say, I want one. But but honestly, I'm so sorry. I don't have any
no, it's okay.
I don't have any motorcycle stories to tell you, except my sister dated a guy that pulled up with a Honda 50 or something. Like a really crummy little bike. And my father thought he was a Hell's Angels. So my father was so straight and conservative.
That's funny. That's good.
Did you know that the Hell's Angels control all the crime in Canada?
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's another podcast.
That's another story.
So what bike do you have? A Norton?
No, I actually have a Honda. I have a Honda Rebel 1100.
Oh.
It's a quick bike. It's a cruiser bike though. You know, it's not one of these crotch rockets. So I just cruise, you know, but you're right. I mean, I'm more worried about the people around me because everybody's doing this and then driving and no one's paying attention.
Because I see guys on motorbikes here with their phones on the handlebars and they're looking down.
They do.
So here's a little interesting story. When I did Miami Vice, the first season of Miami Vice, I did it shortly after I did The Breakfast Club. It was like 1984-ish or whatever. It was the same year as I did The Breakfast Club.
Okay.
And, they flew me down to Miami, and I show up, and the director comes up and he goes, "Wait a minute. Are you a New York actor or a Chicago actor?" I go, "I'm a Chicago actor."
Yeah.
"Can you drive?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm a Chicago actor." "Oh, because all these fucking New York actors can't drive." So Chicago actors had a good reputation because we had driver's licenses.
Oh, well, that's a plus.
Whatever that means. So anyway, they put me in this Corvette. I started up the Corvette, and it was horribly loud, and they had rented it for the day from some guy, so they couldn't use the Corvette. They couldn't have their engine running because it would be bad for sound. So I have to pull in the shot. So they had 6-7 Teamsters. I had to put it in neutral, pushing me into the shot out of the camera lens, with me coming in and then stopping.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So that's it was a convertible white Corvette, 1982 Corvette, and like I have to say, that's the closest I can come to a motorcycle story for you.
Hey, that works for me. Well, John, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'm a big fan, and I'll be looking forward to see your future projects.
Thank you, and let me know when you're going to be letting this one roll so I can hear it.
I definitely will.
Or not hear it, not listen to myself. All right, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, John. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now.